Hello everybody, today we learn lexicology. This subject is rather difficult for you, so I will try to say something only on some aspect of lexicology. And first of all, we will deal with some abstract, some of the abstract part. We have something about to know something about word formation and also the structures, as well as in this lesson today we learn something about the characteristic features of lexicology in general, and also some methodologies related to this subject. Now, first of all, we have to learn the general things about lexicology. Now, have a look at the definition here. Lexicology is a branch of linguistics, the science of language. The term lexicology is composed of two Greek morphemes, lexis and logy. And first of all, lexis means word and phrase. That is why lexical means having something to do with words. And logo, in this case, we have the Greek logo, but in English we have a logy, lexicology. The ending logy in Greek means logo. It denotes learning. And actually, it is the department of knowledge. So, the literal meaning of the term lexicology is the science of words, or the study of words. Okay, in this case, you should know that logy can mean study, science. Okay, so the whole phrase lexicology means the study of lexics. So in this case, lexicology means the studies of words and phrases. And the literal meaning, however, give only a general notion of the aim and the subject matter of this branch of linguistic science. As I have said before, in this lesson today, we know something in general. And since it's the branches also take account of words in one way or another, approaching them from different angles. Phonetics, for instance, investigating the phonetic structures of language. A system of phoneme intonation patterns is concerned with the studies of the ultrasound form of the word. In grammar, in this case, grammar is separately bound up with lexicology. It means that is the studies of the grammatical structures of language. Not only we study lexicology, but also some other aspect of words. I mean that in the lexicology, we have to study the other aspect which can be related to phonemes, morpheme, phoneme, grammar, and also some kind of structures of language in general. Actually, it is concerned with the various means of expressing grammatical relations between words and with the patterns after which words are combined into word groups and sentences. Another way of saying that, in these lexicologies, we learn how to combine words and how to combine phrases in order to make our sentences meaningful. And also, sometimes it is rather difficult for us to learn the combination of words. So, in the lexicologies, we learn the formation of words, we learn the structures of words, and also we learn the meaning, the types of meaning, and also we learn the structure of meaning. In some cases, we learn the way words and phrases are arranged within sentences and how they can stand alone. Yeah. And now we move on to the next part. Lexicology as a branch of linguistics has its own aims and methods of scientific research. Its basic task being a studied and systematic description of vocabulary in respect to its origin. Development current use. Lexicology is concerned with words, variable word groups, phraseological unit, and grid, morpheme which make up words. Distinction is naturally made between general lexicologies and special lexicologies. General lexicology is part of general linguistics. It is concerned with the studies of vocabulary, irrespective of the specific features of any particular language. Special lexicologies is the lexicologies of particular language. For example, we may have English, Russian, Vietnamese, Chinese, etc. The special lexicology means that we study a certain language. The studies of description of its vocabulary and vocabulary unit, primarily words as the main units of language. Needless to say that every special lexicology is based on the principles worked out and laid down by general lexicology. This is the general theories of vocabulary. So, in other words, we can say that in order to study special lexicology, we should know something about the general lexicology. And now we move on to the next slide. And we can say then that there is also a close relationship between lexicology and stylistics, or to be more exact, lingual stylistic or linguistic stylistics. Lingual stylistic is concerned with the studies of the nature, function, structures of stylistic devices. On the one hand, and with the investigation of each type of language, on the other, with its aim, its structures and its characteristic features, and the effect it produces, as well as the interrelation with the other style of language. And now we have two approaches of language study. It means that we have two methods of study lexics on the word system, word or vocabulary unit. There are two principal approaches in linguistic science to the study of language material, namely synchronic. In this case, mean syn together and chrono. Of course, it is in Greek, mean time. So, chrono mean time. And the second one, we have diachronic. Dia, it means true. Okay, so diachronic means through the time. When we have a synchronic approach, it means that we can study the lexicology within a period of time, not the whole history of language. But when we take the diachronic approach, we have to study the history, we have to study the development of lexicology and word and also phrases. With regard to the special lexicology, in the synchronic approach is concerned with the vocabulary of language as existed in a given time or a period of time. And next, we have the descriptive lexicology. Descriptive lexicology can deal with the vocabulary and the vocabulary units of a particular language at a certain time. And in the another way we can say that the diachronic approach in terms of special lexicology deal with the changes in and the development of vocabulary in the course of time. It is a special historical lexicology that deal with the evolution of the vocabulary unit of a language as time goes by. And now we move on to the next. We will deal with some kind of process and also the development of English structures and meaning, and also we should know something about the usage of the vocabulary unit within the story of English language. And now in the next line, it should be particularly assessed that the distinction between the synchronic and the diachronic study is merely a different approach separating for the purposes of investigation that and thus what is their real language inseparable. The two approaches should not be contrasted or set one against the other. In fact, they are intrinsically interconnected and interdependent. Every linguistic structure and system actually exists in a state of constant development, and so that the synchronic state of a language system is the result of the long process of linguistic evolution. And of course, it is the historical development is to know that. A good example of illustrating both the distinction between the two approaches and their interconnection is furnished by the words of to beg and beggar. Yeah, you can see the two words beg and beggar. You can see the relation between the two words. To beg to show the kind of action, and also beggar can this comes from the word beg, and we know that this word is to show a person. Synchronically, the word to beg and beggar is related as a simple, and this is a derived word. The noun beggar is being described the member of the pair for the derivative correlation between the two, the same, and the case to sing. We can have a look at the other kind of word. Sing, singer, and teach. We have a teacher, etc. But as a matter of fact, everything can be changeable. So that is why in the case of sing, singer, teach, teachers, it follows the rule, the normal rule of the language. But in some cases, the changes does not follow the rule at all. But for the word beggar comes first, and then we have beg coming from beggar. So in this case, it is called back derivation. And now it's closely connected with the historical lexicology is contrastive and comparative lexicology, whose aim are to study the correlation between the vocabulary of the two or more languages, and to find out the correspondences between the vocabulary units of the languages under the comparison. Needless to say, one can hardly overestimate the importance of contrastive lexicology as well as comparative linguistics in general and the purpose of classroom teaching of foreign languages. And next, we have some kind of the relation between the lexicology and sociolinguistics, and there is some relations. It is a matter of common knowledge that the vocabulary of any language is never stable and never static, but it constantly changing, growing, decaying. The changes in the vocabulary of a language are due both to linguistic and extra-linguistic causes, to a combination of both. The extra-linguistic causes are determined by the social natures of the language. In this respect, there is a tremendous difference between lexicologies on the one hand, but phonology, we have phonology and morphology and also syntax on the other. Words to a far greater degree than sounds, grammatical forms, or syntactical arrangement are the subject to change, for the word style of the language directly and immediately react to changes in social life, to whatever happens in the life of the speech communities in question. To illustrate the immediate connection between the development of vocabulary and the actual linguistic causes, a few examples will suffice. The intensive development of science and technology has literally given birth to a great number of the new words. Thanks to study this, we have the new words appear according to the process, and we know the computer word, computer, cyclotron, radar, psycholinguistic, etc. The conquest and research of outer space retarded to the Soviet people contributed to us like Sputnik, lunar cod, baby moon, moon car, spaceship. It is significant that the suffix "nik" occurred in the noun Sputnik is freely applied to new words of various kinds. For example, Flamnik, Mousnik, and Oofsnik. The factor of the social need also manifests itself in the mechanism of word formation. And next, among the adjectives with the suffix y, derived from the noun stems, denoting fabrics, silky, velvety, oily, and the adjective "tweedy" stand out as the meaning not merely resembling or like twigs, but rather sport style. It is to describe the style of appearance, style of clothing, which is a characteristic of a definite social group, namely people going in for country sport. The adjective "tweedy" is in this meaning defines the notion, which is a specific, not the speaker community in question, and is therefore socio-linguistically conditioned. From the above, a dual example is followed that contrasts with the phonology, morphology, and syntax. I'd like to remind you that, okay? And now we know, we move on to the other aspect we have to know. That is called lexical unit. There are some things that you have to try to learn and also understand about the concept. And it was a point out that lexicology study various lexical units. We have a morpheme, words, variable words, groups, phraseological unit. We proceed from the assumption that the word and is the basic units of language system. The last is the morphologics, and the smallest on the syntactic plane of linguistic analysis. The word is a structural and semantic entity within the language system. It should be pointed out that there is another approach to the concept of the basic language unit. The criticism of this viewpoint cannot be discussed within the framework of the present study. Suffice to say that here we consistently proceed from the concept of the word and the basic unit in all the branches of the lexicology. Both words and phraseological unit are names of four things. Name the names of the action, objects, qualities. Unlike words are proper, however, phraseological unit of words, groups consisting of two or more words. Those a combination is integrated as a unit with the specialized meaning of the whole. To illustrate the lexical, or to be more exact, vocabulary units, theta, were, ThS are words denoting various objects. Of the phraseological unit, each is a word group, but with a specialized meaning of the whole. Namely, bright frost and fog without the snow or ram. Red tape denotes bureaucratic method, and the skeleton in the cupboard refer to the fact of which a family is ashamed and which it tried to hide. It means this is a secret. And now another concept that we should know, it is rather difficult for you to understand some general aspects of lexicology. And now we know something about the variety of words. It means that we learn some of the different kinds of words. Although the ordinary speaker is acutely word conscious and easily find no difficulty either in isolating words from an utterance or in identifying them in the process of communication. The precise linguistic definition of word is far from easy to state. No exhaustive definition of the word has been given by linguists, because it is rather difficult to understand the whole thing, and different have a different opinion. That is why a lot of people have a different definition about the words varieties. And now the word as well as the linguistic side is to face the unit, processing from both and content. To be more exact, the sound form and meaning, neither can exist without the other. For example, thimble, this is the word of framework of a lexical word, primary because it has a lexical meaning. We have can, small cap, the matter, and plastic, etc. Another system, we know something about the system showing a word. It is a kind of word form and called paradigm. Okay, we also have to know the different pattern of the structure, so we can have this the kind of paradigm. And the lexical meaning of the word is the same throughout the paradigm. For example, you can understand what is a paradigm. Now, for the word to take, we have a different form of take. Now we have a to take, taked, took, taking, or singer, singers, singers, singers. We have a different form of the word. So this is called paradigm. It means that we have to, when we study a vocabulary unit, or to be more exact, when we say we learn something, a word, we have to learn different form of words. And also, there are two approaches to the paradigm of word. This is considered or regarded as a system of forms of a word. It will reveal the differences and the relationship between them. In abstraction from concrete words, it can be treated as the pattern on which every word of one speech model is formed, thus serving to distinction. And now, beside the grammatical form of words, the word form some scholars distinguish lexical varieties. We know we can term the variant of word. Distinction is made between two basic rules of word. And now we move on to the next page. Next page, and slide. Sometimes it may be easy to observe that the most essential features of variant of words are both groups and that. A slight change in the morphemic or phonemic composition of the word is not connected with any modification of its meaning, and vice versa. The change in meaning is not followed by any structural changes, either morphemic or phonemic. Like word forms, a variant of words are identified in the process of communication as a making up one and the same word. And thus, with this language system, we know that some words that exist as a system and unities of all its forms and variants. And we should know something about the studies of lexicology nowadays. We have the main principle underlying the classification of vocabulary unit. We study in the specific group. And now we have all the things that are related to the content of lexicology. And the first thing we should know the zero inflection. It means that we have to deal with no conjugation, or another word we say inflection affix. We have a pair of vocabulary items like economic, economical, historic, and historical, differing in meaning. Okay, so they cannot be regarded as a morphological variant. So section can deal with the lexicography. And next, so the English lexicology can be the subject of the study from of theoretical courses. In order to study in lexicology, we have several things to bear in mind. For example, you learn something about the first aspect, semasiology. It means that we have to study the semantic structure of a word, and also the classification. Also, we have to learn the word groups and the phraseological unit, the word structures, and the word formation. Etymological survey of the English word stock. And also, we have to study the fundamental of the English lexicography, but only some part of this. And now we go part by part, and we try to understand some kind of aspect in the lexicology. Now we learn several of the main part. Yeah, the main part of this. Now, semasiology. By definition, lexicology deals with words and word forming morpheme, and it is called derivation emphasis, and word group and phrases. And the second thing, it should be pointed out that just as lexicology is beginning to absorb a major part of efforts of linguistic scientists. And next, semasiology is coming to the fore as the central problem of linguistic investigation at all levels of language structure. And we should know that the word can play a crucial part in the structures of language that we can speak of. And next, in order to try to find out the different aspects of meaning, we have to rely on the several parts of the word. We have to rely on the root of the word and the suffixes and prefixes. Meaning is one of the most controversial terms in the theories of language. First, the science of understanding of this term seems to the present no difficulties at all. It is freely used in teaching, interpreting, and translation. The scientific definition of meaning, however, just as the definition of some basic linguistic terms, such as words, sentence, etc. Now we go into detail. That is called word meaning. Reference approach. Yeah, there are some progress speaking about two schools to meaning of thought in present-day linguistics that presenting the main line of the contemporary thinking on the problem. The reference approach, which seeks to formulate the essence of meaning by establishing the interdependence between words and the thing or concept they denote. And sometimes the term semantic is too, but in Soviet linguistic reference is given to semasiology. And now we move on to the next. Now, let's know something about this. We can examine the place of meaning of the model. And in order to find out the real meaning of the word, we have to rely on different aspects of the words. And for example, in terminological confusion has gone much. Especially that is the misunderstanding. Misunderstanding often happen when we don't pay attention to the very kind the structures of the word, and also the meaning of the grammar, the meaning of the lexical words. So and now we have the three components to pay attention to especially when we try to know the meaning, the real meaning of the words. Now, first of all, we think of the sound form. In the sound form, we can refer to the concept, and so we have a reference. And also for the simple, we can have a look at the simple, and we will try to think, and this is our thought. We know something about the reference, and we move on toward the reference. Yeah, this is triangle of cognitive understanding. And also, in the other kind of aspect, we have the sign, and also have a meaning, and things we match. And the next, when we have the sign, we have a designatum, and also the denotatum. Okay. And besides, if the meaning inherently connected with the sound form have a linguistic unit, it will follow that a change in sound form would necessitate a change of meaning. It means that between the sound and the meaning there is a close relationship. Yeah, each one aspect change, the other will change. And next, when we examine the word, we can see that the meaning of the word should be closely connected with the concept, and also the concept is but not identical with them. Of course, there are maybe some differences. And to begin with, the concept is a category of human cognition. Concept is the thought of the object that sings out its essential features. And we know that something about the difference between the meaning and the concept can also be observed by comparing synonymous words and word groups expressing essentially the same concept but possessing linguistic meaning, which is found as different in each of the unit under consideration. And another thing that in order to distinguish the meaning from the reference from the thing denoted by the linguistic sign is the utmost importance. And a first sign does not seem to present difficulties. To begin with, the meaning of in linguistic, whereas denotes the object and the reference is beyond the scope of language. We can denote the one and the same object by more than one word of a different meaning. And now we can think of the meaning in the references approach. And it should be pointed out that the adherent to the reference approach, there are someone who hold that meaning as a linguistic sign in the concept of underlying it. And the main thing that you have to pay attention to the accuracies of the meaning in the words. And also, we try to find the connection between words and also between the form and the meaning of the words. And now we know something, we try to understand some more thing of the meaning. As understood in the references approach, comprises interrelation of linguistic sign with categories and phenomena outside the scope of language. The results of the semantic investigation therefore depend on a certain extent the field of the language and cannot be varied by another investigator analyzing the same linguistic data. So you can know that the semasiology has to rely much on linguistic intuition, and unlike other fields of linguistic inquiry, this does not possess the objective method of investigation. And now next we try to get familiar with the functional approach to meaning. We have a several to approach, lexicology. In recent years, the new and entirely different approach to meaning known as the functional approach. That has been begun to take shape in the linguistics, and especially in the structural linguistics. The functional approach maintains that the meaning of the linguistic unit may be studied only through the relation to other linguistic unit, and not through the isolation and the concept or reference. In the very simplified form, this view may be illustrated by the following. We know, for instance, that the meaning of the two words, move and movement, is different because they function in speech differently. So that a word may have a different function, but each kind of function may have the different meaning. Another word we say that a word may have a different form, and also in the different form we have a different meaning, and also in the position of the sentence. The same is true of different meanings of one and the same word. Analyzing the function of the word in a linguistic context and comparing this context, we can conclude that the meanings are different or the same, and the fact can be proved by objective investigation of linguistic data. So in order to follow the functional approach, we have several things to bear in mind. That is called semantic investigation. It confined to the analysis of the difference. And the second thing that is called meaning is understood essentially as the function of this linguistic unit. As a matter of fact, this line of semantic investigation is the primary concern, implied or expressed. And so we know something more about the relation between the two approaches. When comparing the two approaches described above in terms of method of linguistics analysis, we can see that the functional approach should not be considered as an alternative, but that a valuable complement to the reference theory. Why? Because when we use the functional approach, it will be rather difficult for us to carry out any analysis in the structures of the linguistic or the language and linguistic unit. And now we move on to styles of meaning. It is more or less universally recognized that word meaning is not homogeneous, but in the matter of various components of the combination and the interrelation which determine to a great extent enough phases of the word. Why? Because nowadays there are a lot of borrowed words, and of course, when we use a borrowed word, we may think of the new meaning and also the old meaning to the origin. And now we just go through some kind of grammatical meaning. In order to know something about the grammatical meaning, we have to pay attention to the word form. And also the function of the words. And grammatical meaning may be defined as the component of the meaning recurrent in identical set of the individual form of different words. And so the tense meaning in the word form, and also the case meaning in the word form in various nouns. The case, and I repeat, and the tenses and the case. In the broad sense, it may be argued that linguistics who make a distinction between lexical and grammatical meaning, in fact, sometimes This is a main distinction, and the functional meaning can operate at various level as the interrelation of various linguistic units. And now also we know something about the lexical meaning. Comparing the word form of one and the same word, we may have the meaning interrelation with the different form of the words. Unlike grammatical meaning, this component is identical in all forms of the words. For example, we have the paradigm here: go, goes, went, going, gone. They possess different grammatical meaning of tenses, but the meaning has the lexical quite different. Sometimes it may share the same meaning. And in the next part, we know something about the part of speech meaning. It is usually to classify lexical item in major word classes. We have noun, verbs, adjective, and adverb, and those are called notional words. And also sometimes we have the functional word. We may have, for example, article, preposition, conjunction, etc. And now we move on to the notion of the meaning, and there are two kinds of lexical meaning. In this case, we have denotational meaning and also connotational meaning. You should know that the denotational meaning can be found in the dictionary, but for the connotational meaning, we have to rely on the situation and also the context to show our feeling. Especially connotational words or meaning can be used to show our anger, our love, likes and dislike. Of course they have to express the feeling. For example, normally we can use the word father, but whenever we want to show our emotion, we say dad or daddy. And also we have something emotive charge. Word contain an element of emotive evaluation at the part of the connotation meaning. And however, denote the small houses or cottage that beside we have both connotation meaning and denotation meaning. And also the next we have a stylistic reference. Words differ not only in their emotive charge, but also in their stylistic reference. Stylistically, words can be roughly subdivided into literary, neuter, colloquial layers. And also we have a written part of the literary layer of the modern language, modern English vocabulary. And those are the words we have to study the word in the general use, possessing no specific stylistic reference, and known as neuter words. Again, the background of neuter words we can distinguish two major subgroups. So we have a standard and literary or bookish words. For example, we have a parent, father, dad. Now the stylistic reference or standard colloquial words. It is clearly obvious when we compare them with the neuter synonym. For example, Tom, it means friend, rot, it means nonsense. And for the bookish words, we should know that sometimes it is homogeneous. And and sometimes we may have slang and professionalism. And another thing that we have emotive chain and the stylistic reference. stylistic difference and emotive charge. Words are all closely connected and to a certain degree interdependent. And also in the next thing, we should know the two main types of the word meaning, and especially the grammatical and the lexical meaning we can find in all kinds of words. It is really necessary for us to know the kinds of words and also the meaning and also the form of words. It is really necessary. And also in the next we have a word meaning and the meaning in morpheme. And as we should know that the morpheme, this is a component of the word. Now, one word can be one morpheme, but in some cases a word may contain several morphemes, and the number of morphemes depend on each other, and so there is some kind of meaning related to the morpheme. Sometimes one morpheme we have one meaning, but sometimes we have more than two morphemes. Because the meaning of the word will change. And also the functional meaning and the lexical meaning in the affix morpheme. As a rule, it is a more generalizing character. In some cases, the functional meaning can predominate the words. And another thing, we may have a different meaning beside the type of the meaning proper both to word and morpheme. So the letter, and that is the morpheme, may possess a specific meaning of their own, namely the differencer and the distributor meaning. Difference meaning is the semantic component that serves to distinguish the one word from all the other containing the identical morphemes. In words consisting of two or more morphemes, one of the constituent morpheme always has a different difference meaning. What about the distributor meaning? Distributional meaning is the meaning that the order and arrangement of morphemes making up the word. It is found in all words containing more than one morpheme. The word, for example, singer. Each is a combo of two morphemes. We have a root word sing and and this is a suffix. Of course, I have two meanings, and the whole meaning, that is the combination of the two morphemes. Singer. Also, we try to find out the word meaning and also the motivation. We have totally three kinds of motivation. So, the first kind of motivation, that is called morphological motivation. In this kind of motivation, we have to rely on the structures of the morpheme. For example, we have to teach, and the noun we have a teacher. So, this is called the morphological motivation. Yeah, I repeat, the motivation, that is the connection, okay, between part of the words, and also the formation of words. It should be noted that in passing that the morphological motivation is relative, the degrees of motivation may be different. Between the extremes of complete motivation and lack of motivation, there exists a varied grade of partial motivation. To the average English speaker, this name we may have the kind of place name can be referred to the name of the product. Now the second one, the phonetic motivation. In this case, that is the imitation. Yeah, when we try to imitate the sound of animals and some kind of things, the this is the imitation. For example, of the sound meow, and the next tic tac, tic tac. For the sound of a duck, we may have quack, a quack. Okay, this is the sound of the duck. Another way we can say that this is sound cluster. Okay, it is an imitative of the sound or movement. And also the next. The next kind of motivation we may have, that is called the relationship between the direct and the indirect meaning. So we may have the name semantic motivation. And so for some of the summary here, lexical meaning and the denotation and the connotation component may be found in the morpheme of different style. The detonation meaning is the affix morpheme, may be rather vague and abstract. Sometimes it is really difficult for you to understand, and it is really complicated. And the difference meaning and denotation meaning may not be mutually exclusive. And functional meaning is the same as a semantic component that serve primarily to refer the word to a certain part of speech. And now we have to know something about the change of meaning. The word meaning is liable to change in the course of historical development of the language. Okay, it changes in certain period of time or in the development of language and the history. And now we know something about the causes of semantic change. We have several aspects. And first of all, we have the main cause here, and that is called actual linguistic, and second, linguistic causes. For the actual linguistic, we may think of the situation in daily life. We may have to make a change in the meaning, but in a different group of people and also different geographic area. The commonest form in which influence take the so-called ellipses. Sometimes we have to omit a part of elliptic word or some part, and so the meaning can change. It depends on the situation. And there are also two kinds of association involve the role in various semantic change. We have the similarities of meaning, and also we have a contiguity of meaning. Those are the main thing. And also I'd like to say something about the continuity of meaning. Contiguity of meaning, and we can see that is the process of relation between the two words that can stay side by side or can stay enclosed, they stay closely to each other. And also the meaning can be influenced by the words stay side by side. And the next we may have some changes in the denotation meaning, and it is commonly known that sometimes we have to accept that and there is an extension of meaning depending on the period of time and also the changes in economy and technology. And so it is of interest to know that derivation cluster of the change in the connotation meaning. One member does not necessarily affect the other, and they are or closely related. But we have to know that all the meaning of the words are related to the form of words. Okay, thank you. That's all for now. Thank you and goodbye.